Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay, welcome everyone to this webinar. First, can I check whether anyone, or if you can hear anything, can you type it in the chat? Okay, thank you. Thank you for confirming that. All right. So this week is Open Education Week, and as part of the university's efforts in open education, we are organizing this webinar to present to the university and also those who are outside of the university some of the activities and practices that we have here at the University of the South Pacific. And I have three lovely ladies as our panelists. Dr. Rajni Chand, our Director for the Center for Flexible Learning, and Marie Chen, who's our IP and Copyright Officer, and Gwen from the library, who's our Senior Library Officer. Okay. So our program this morning is to start off with our director from Center for Flexible Learning. If you have any questions, you can type it out in the chat. Towards the end of a speaker's presentation, I will then pause for questions and answers, and I can also allow you to speak. If anyone needs to speak, you can use the raise hand icon. So none of you have, as participants, the ability to unmute yourself, so you'll have to use the raise hand icon, as this is a webinar. So without further ado, I introduce to you our director from the Center for Flexible Learning, Dr. Rajni Chand, who has been director from 2021 up until today, and she's been with the university for over 25 years as a student, teacher, researcher, and also a course coordinator for the UU 114 course. And I warmly welcome her and welcome everyone. So over to you, Dr. Chand. Dr. Chand, please, we cannot hear you.
You have unmuted me now. So can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Yeah, because this thing plays up. Okay. Good morning to all of you, and welcome to the first week of March. And this week, of course, marks the Open Educational Resource Week, which is marked as that week for a very long time. If you actually have a look at the practice of Open Education Resource or OER week itself, it has been something that has been in a way celebrated in a sense, or a week in which we are promoting OER for educationists, students, as well as those who are interested in promoting this since 2013. And this is actually a very important event because it marks as a landmark of how we are trying to encourage open, free, and basically recognized resources that can be used globally in community, whether it is in education or non-formal education practices, and which actually reduces the cost of education itself. when we actually have a look at the various websites as well as other universities which are part of this program itself, we are actually the first to start this celebration. And Mojito has shared the calendar or the Open Week site link itself. But when we actually have a look at it, we are the first to organize this webinar. There will be others around the world who will be joining us later today from different countries or different universities where they also practice or encourage or promote OER. Now, one of the things that I have come to realize is that we really have to be the advocates to make sure that all academics and students are given that type of links and support and guidance necessary so that they understand what OER stands for, how they are going to benefit from it, and how it actually reduces the cost of education itself. When we actually have a look at the kind of books or the cost that the textbooks are actually, when we have a look at the resource list that the academics share, just last week I was looking at one of the lists for one of the institutions, and unfortunately they don't have a bookshop, so the books can only be found at USB bookshop. For a first year course, one of the textbooks was $380. And when I tried to look online, I found that one of the editions was free online downloading. Now that is something that the academics don't tell students, that there are now various versions which the publishers are also offering as something that can be also accessed by as open resources. So we need to also have a look at affordability of education and then decide what resources we are including in our courses. Are they the only option? Is that what we want our students to use? Or are there comparatively better or affordable resources available online, open resources that can also be used as resources that can be used for education purposes itself? So I have a lot of pleasure in opening this session this week. We are the pioneers in the sense because we are going to be the first in the world to have a webinar for this year's, like every year, because of our time in the world itself. But while you are listening to it, have a look at the kind of posts and things the various universities around the world are putting up, saying that, for instance, I quote, that we have Oregon State University, which says that through the promotion, through the various engagements with the various faculty members, they actually were able to save $18 million of course material since 2019 winter. That is a lot of money, and that can be utilized in different ways in different sectors rather than in spending in textbooks, which after a few years become obsolete or are not used as much because another version comes out or another edition comes out. So all around the world now, and I think more after the COVID lockdown, we have people focusing or depending on resources which can be available online. And OER are one of those. So this week marks the way in which we, in a way, propagate for it. Try to encourage people to use them in their courses or for the everyday reading as a recommended text or in other sectors apart from this formal education. So it's my pleasure to open this, and I look forward to hearing from others on how we at USP are encouraging and supporting this for a question of affordability, quality, as well as for encouraging paperless environment so that we are what we always propagate for, or as a green economy. Thank you. And as it should be, I basically I'm opening the session. Thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chand, for opening our sessions. And now I would hand it over to Gwen. But before I do, I do recall that I forgot to introduce myself. Mojito Jione here at the Center for Flexible Learning, and I'm your host for the webinar, as well as for any future correspondence that you may have with CFL with regards to open education. You can contact me, and we can collaborate, and also I can share with you all the wonderful things that we're doing here at CFL. So now I will hand it over to Gwen from the University Library, and she's going to present on some of the services the library has for students and staff, and also for the public as well. Some of the OER resources, the resources that they have, and without further ado, I'll hand it over to Gwen.
Thank you, Mojito. To the host, the keynote speaker, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. My talk this morning is how the USB Library Network, with its campuses and center libraries spread across our region, are providing access to quality OERs to our students, researchers, and staff, and in effect, empowering our Pacific communities, not only here at Lodhala, but across the Pacific region. So whilst I'll briefly talk about 4 points, 3 of them are very relevant to our internal users, our staff and students and researchers, whilst one, our LibGuides, is relevant for our external participants this morning. So just allow me to share my screen. Right. So my talk is about 4 points: LibGuides on open access and open educational resources. My second point will be on suite of online library databases that the library subscribes to, with particular focus on Faculty Select and Ithaca's Path to Open. My third topic is about transformative agreements, and as an additional, I'll also talk about USP ERR, which is not directly within the library, hosted by the library, but it's from Research Office, and I just thought it was relevant that I bring it to this morning's webinar. So my first topic is on LibGuides. So from the USP homepage, you would see on the top scroll bar, the third is Library at Select Guide. So this is the one that is open also to the members of the public. And under Subject Guides, I'll just go to All Guides. And then we have a specific one under O for Open Access and Open Educational Resources. So here we have grouped textbook materials together that are freely available, as well as journals and magazines, OERs, and also recommended websites. Next thing I'll talk about on how USP Library is providing access to quality OERs is on Faculty Select. This widget is available to our faculty staff, our teaching staff, and this link is made accessible to our through our liaison librarians. A site that is subscribed to by the USP Library. The content in Faculty Select includes OERs from BC Open Textbooks, Open Textbook Library, MIL Open Textbooks, OAPN, and OpenStax, and not forgetting EBSCO's eBooks OA collection, which are all DRM free or digital rights management free. It provides course materials for adoption that are of zero cost to students, thereby leveraging textbook affordability. It also saves time with streamlined access to OERs. I'll just briefly demonstrate one example. So just say your keywords are sustainable development goals, sustainable development goals. I'll just put it in double quotation marks because I want to search for it as a phrase, an exact phrase. So you'd see I have quite a bit of results, over 1,400. I can narrow it down with those keywords, just searching within the title. And you'd see in the facets on the left-hand side, I can limit it to OERs or open access ebooks. So if I click on OERs, for each of the search results, you'll have a tab at the bottom, which allows you to preview or adopt this open ebook. You can actually preview it or request a course-friendly link, as well as open access ebooks. So I'm going to the facet on the left-hand side, whereby you can automatically access the full text, or you can actually download a copy for reading offline. My next area is on Ithaca's path to open. Close these. JSTOR is one of the databases that the library subscribes to, and for a bit of trivia knowledge, USP's usage in JSTOR for 2023 last year puts it in the top 1% of universities worldwide in terms of JSTOR usage. So this is as ranked by JSTOR classification. So it's very popular with our students and researchers. And last year, USP Library started its subscription to Path to Open, a new collaboration between JSTOR, university presses, and libraries that addresses the challenges of funding open access books. It is a community-supported model for equitable open access ebooks for the entire scholarly community, whereby university presses can publish open access books sustainably, libraries acquire affordable, high-quality front-list titles, readers gain access to valuable content, and authors reach a global audience. So it's a win-win situation for four of the stakeholders: the presses, the university presses, libraries, and its readers, and its authors. So I'll just go back to the USP website just to show you for those participants within the university. You get to our list of online databases. So from our catalog, our online catalog, the second tab, Find Databases, it gives you a whole list of the online databases that we subscribe to. And Ithaca is under JSTOR, so you would click on this link. My next topic is about transformative agreements. This is something new it's very new for the University of the South Pacific, but other university libraries have forged a way ahead of us. So in a transformative agreement, I've come to the Springer Nature website because they're one of the leaders in transformative agreements. In a transformative agreement, a library pays a publisher to publish in open access, rather than a library paying a subscription, like what normally USP is currently doing. So copyright remains with the author and the agreement is generally transparent. Contracts negotiated between institutions, whether it be libraries, national or regional consortia, and publishers that transform the business model underlying scholarly journal publishing, moving from one based on subscription to one in which publishers are remunerated a fair price for their open access publishing services. So whilst transformative agreements are relatively new and not perfect, they represent a willingness by the publishing system to shift away from traditional publishing styles, and to prioritize the needs of our students in ensuring their access to affordable course materials. And to complicate things further, there are gold and green open access. In a nutshell, there are two main routes to making research outputs openly accessible. One involves publishing articles or books via the open access route on a publisher's platform. This is open access. The other involves archiving a version of the manuscript in an open access repository. This is called green open access, so similar to something like our USP-ERR. Content published via the cold open access is accessible immediately on publication, but in the green open access route, it's accessible only once a self-archiving embargo period has elapsed. So whilst USP has yet to take advantage of such transformative agreements, it is my hope, and that's why I've brought it to this webinar, that the USP community will come forward and with the library be part of this information transformation. My final point that I'll talk about will be about USP electronic resource repository. So whilst not directly related to the library, it is handled by research office. I'll just take you to the USP research office homepage. And the research repository. Further down, you can search for materials according to subject areas, authors, types. I'll just show by browsing by year and show currently for this year, there are already 25 publications within the USP-ERR. Of interest, you can see the rise and fall of the total numbers of publications that USP has done. It was quite low last year compared to the previous years, and it peaked around 2014. So I'll just show you 2024. Of the 25 items, I'll just stick with the first 4. So if I click on the first one, this is barred because it's restricted to only repository staff. So this is not quite a good example. The second one, it's unpublished material. But you would see here it's available under license, a Creative Commons attribution. I'll leave that to the expert, Marie, to talk more about that in her session. The third and fourth one, if I click on it, I can automatically download the full text. Or ideally, I just click on the title. Yep, and then I download it. So that's the same one with the third one and the fourth one, which are good examples of open access resources. So in conclusion, on behalf of the USP Library team to the Center of Flexible Learning, please accept my deep appreciation for inviting the library to this panel discussion. To the audience, I hope you found my presentation insightful and thought-provoking. Pinakabalevu, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gwen. We'll now break for questions. If there is any question that anyone has for Gwen, you can type them out in the chat, or if you do raise your hand, I can also allow you to speak. Our next presentation or presenter is Rajni Chand, who is our IP and copyright officer, and she's going to talk about the fun stuff, policies, copyright license, and Creative Commons license, or what Gwen mentioned about a Creative Commons license. If you're unsure of what that is, Marie is going to unpack that for us. If there are no questions for Gwen, then we'll move straight to Marie. Apologies for her video. She unfortunately wouldn't get her webcam to work, so you'll just have to make do with audio and whatever she shares on screen. So over to you, Marie.
Thank you very much, Mojito. And I want to share 4 things with you. One is a PowerPoint presentation, and then 2 going by the policies of the university. So the first thing I want to do is say, what is copyright? And so everybody, I think, knows this. And probably we have people who know all about it because they've been in this field for decades. And then there's some people who are probably new to this. So I'm probably going to pitch it at the very low level. Copyright generally, if we go to the Copyright Act in Fiji, I'm using the Copyright Act in Fiji because we're based at Lavala. What this university does allow is that you can use the copyright based on the country that you're in. So if you're studying in Samoa, you'd use the law in Samoa and so forth. So since we're based in Lavala, I'm going to just use the Fiji Copyright Act. So this refers to literary, dramatic, musical, and artistic works, sound recordings, audiovisual works, broadcast, cable programs, and typographical arrangements of published editions. So these are typically the scope of where you find copyright items in. And it doesn't just limit this to that, because I found going through this that it actually does allow for copyright in computer generated works. Amazing. So the author of that would be the owner of that would be the person who generated that material. But I have a little bit of a disclaimer to make. I think that this copyright material as recognized by WIPO is something that you cannot claim copyright really over, because it's not generated by a thinking mind, a working mind, a human mind. Is generated by a computer. And so WIPO does not recognize this as something you can claim copyright over. Then we go to who is the owner of the copyright, and what is the rights of the copyright owner. And the copyright owner has a right to issue copies to the public, to publicly perform, to broadcast, to communicate to the public, to adapt the work. So if you've got, for example, a book that you wrote on, who knows, a story, you can change it into a broadcast, you can make it a stage production, you can make a movie out of it, you can have all rights to it because you are the copyright owner. You can also sell those rights to other people and allow them to use the work as it is, but that's between you and the person you give that right to. So the rights that you have are 2 types. One is a moral right, and sorry, go back. And the other one is the economic right. So if you create something morally, you are the owner of this thing. And if you want to sell it or give it away, then that is part of the rights that you have, the economic rights. So how long does this right last? It's for life plus 50 in Fiji. And some places may vary. In Fiji, it's up to the time that you pass and 50 years thereafter. So literally dramatic musical works expire at the end of 50 years. For photographs, it's at the end of 50 years after the end of the calendar year in which the photograph was taken. And if it's a computer generated work of unknown authorship, at the end of 50 years after the end of the calendar year of authorized publication of the work. Or if there's no authorized publication within 50 years after the making, then at the end of 50 years of the calendar of the calendar year. And the next question you might want to ask is, so how much can you copy? So the university generally, the Copyright Act generally recognizes 10% or one chapter of any literary, dramatic, or musical or artistic work. And sometimes you might say, oh, 10%, that's not enough. I want to copy the whole book. Well, you just can't. You have to go and seek the permission of the publisher or the author of that particular work before you can copy the whole book. And sometimes you'll say, well, it's impossible. I need to copy the 100%. In some cases you can. For example, you can't just copy 10% of a photo. You have to take the whole 100% of the photo or 100% of the diagram, right? So there are some exceptions made for this 10%, but you can't just go and willy-nilly copy the whole book. As some people have said to me, I'm just going to take this whole book, put it on the photocopier, and away you go. So you really can't do that. You need to get permission. And so there's a process called clearinghouse, and you go to the intellectual property and copyright officer, that's me, and seek assistance to get clearance for this particular item. And then the next one is, yes, I've just said the permissible limits. So the next one is that I'm going to go back here and unshare. Yeah, pardon me. Go back to the policy. So the university policy, what does it say? Just a minute while I find it. Here we are. Share. So we have this university policy, which is not coming up. Why is it not coming up? Oh, here we go. So the regulations governing copyright. This is the university. Sorry, go back. Can you see this on the screen? What is it showing? OER and not OER? Or maybe I'm sharing the wrong document. Sorry, go back. I'm going to share the right document now. There's so many documents open on my screen. Oh, I don't have to unshare. Okay. Sorry, I went to the wrong document. I can't get hold of this document. Okay, I had to leave it. Okay, going backwards. This is the university intellectual property policy. So I'm coming back to the university now. The university does have such a policy that was done in 2022. And under the intellectual property definition, copyright is one of those things that are recognized by the term intellectual property. So if you see here, intellectual property means output of skill, effort, and intellect, including copyright works and includes, but can you see that? You can't see that. Oh, sorry, I've been talking nonsense. Just a minute. Sorry, go back and share. Can you see in definitions, intellectual property? Okay, so intellectual property means any output of skill, effort, and intellect, including copyright works, and includes but not restricted to circuit layouts, confidential information, teaching research materials developed for by the university, designs, discoveries, inventions, whole bunch of things, trade practices, confidential information, trade secrets, database, computer software, creative work material, literary, artistic, musical, dramatic works, cinematographic, multimedia works, and the catch-all at the end, any other intellectual property rights. And you might imagine, that's it, right? That's all the kinds of intellectual property, but there's actually two missing. One is traditional knowledge that's generally accepted as one kind of intellectual property, and another one is geographical indications. So for example, tequila, it's a particular product of that particular place, and when you use it, it only can be used in a certain way. So, and those things are made out of those particular areas. So there's a big effort in Tonga, particularly now. I don't know about Fiji, but Tonga is going to be the first one in the world, I think, to try and get kava as a geographical indicator so that it protects that kava. And Fiji people are not moving fast enough to protect that one. So because there's a lot of outcry about the use of kava, particularly for medicinal purposes, and they've trademarked it all over the world, and there are kava bars in every country now, and they're even growing kava in China. So the question is, how can we protect this particular thing, which they think is unique to the Pacific? So the university has now got some testing going on to see of the, is it 13 types or 60 types or something of kava, whether they have a particular chemical that is endemic in all of them. And if there is, then we can say, okay, this particular chemical identifies it as a unique product to Fiji. And if that is the case, then we can take kava to be changed or categorized as a geographical indicator for Fiji, but that might take some years to come. But Tonga's on the ball. They might get it going before anyone else in the Pacific. So there's one kind of trademark here which is unique to the Pacific, and only Samoa has it. The trademark application is that you can register this trademark in Samoa's registry, and it protects right throughout the world. And so it's quite a big income earner for Samoa, I'm sure. But you have to then have signed up to the Madrid system, which none of the other Pacific Island countries have done. So kudos to Samoa in that particular area. So when we go back to this definition of, sorry, just on this question you ask, well, why are traditional knowledge and geographical indicators not on this list? I don't know. This policy was drafted before I came into the university, but I flagged it to my professor, Sushil Kumar. He's a research director. So hopefully there will be some change coming up. And then the question you might ask is, okay, so that's what intellectual property is. So where does copyright sit among all of these? So the question is, intellectual property, if I can say, is sort of like, if you draw it down to kingdom, genus, and species, then intellectual property is the kingdom, where the big question mark out there comes of what is a subset, so, or what is a genus species. So I would say all of these things, A to H, are subsets or genus species of intellectual property. And among this subset would come copyright. But somehow the university recognizes copyright as a kind of separate instrument from intellectual property, but I think they are grouped together. The bigger head is intellectual property, and all the subsets includes copyright. So if I've confused you enough, I now go to the open resources policy. Can you see open education resources policy? So this one here is earlier in time even to the intellectual property policy. This was done in 2017. And it has a review date of 2020, and I'm told by Mojito that they've reviewed it and there was nothing to be changed. So this policy continues. But I flagged a couple of items in my own review, which I think has some contradictory elements to this particular policy. So I want the university to try and see how these two policies can coexist, but living together as they have for the last few years. They've lived together side by side, maybe one ignoring the other, because they're saying two quite different things. Let me just take you to the OER policy. The OER policy says, in terms of copyright, that the university retains intellectual property rights in all teaching and learning resources developed by staff as per the university governing copyright policy. And then I'll show you this one later on. Let's just finish this one first. Teaching and learning resources developed by the university shall be shared on an appropriate open license to permit reuse, revision, remixing, and redistribution of the same by others. And I'm just going to take you to this word shall. It's mandatory. It says the teaching resources shall be developed by on an open license system. Whereas if you go to the other one, the university IP policy, it talks about the IP that's created by staff. Oh, sorry, I didn't quite take you there, did I? Let me just take you back. If the IP is created by staff, then it stays with the staff. Stays with the university. If it stays done by a student, then it's done totally at the student's right. But if it's done by staff, it belongs to the university. except if it's done in your own time without using the university's resources and doesn't relate to work. So there we are. So the university will assert ownership of intellectual property created by the university. And if it's done by students, it belongs to the students. So going back to this open education policy now, so we see that the university retains copyright. It's so far there's not much contradiction there. Then it says the learning and teaching shall be developed on an open policy, open license system. Whereas the previous one, the intellectual property, would rely on the copyrights as developed by the staff or students. Whereas here it has to be on an open license system. So the question comes down to who will determine that? Well, it says the university will determine who will be responsible for the choice. And it doesn't say, the university is very broad. I take that to mean it's the person who configured this system, this policy, and it would be the Deputy Vice Chancellor Learning, Teaching and Student. Is there such a position now, Mojito? That position still exists? I think that position has changed now. DVC education. Okay, so there's this policy perhaps has to be revised on from your end to allow the change of policy. So we have the university DVCE, I think, is the last call to determine how this, which of these open licenses will be used. And the university will adopt the most current Creative Commons licensing for its open licenses. A detailed guide is made available. University reserves the right not to share resources that may be commercially viable. So there is a let out there in the system that you can use the traditional copyright methodology. Whatever particular resource is developed under collaboration with others, the licensing of that material must be in accordance with the terms and conditions in the agreement. So at this point, any agreements that can be made with outside people, outside of the university or other researchers, can be agreed to use either open licensing system or the traditional copyright methodology. A retrospective release of courses and learning material shall be undertaken in a phased manner. So that means they're trying to bring in as much material as they can into the OER system, but just on a phase-out basis. So the question for Mojito and probably the rest of the CFL and the rest of the university is, how many courses have we brought into open learning material using open license in the last few decades or since this policy has been adopted? Then the university, the last call is down to the DVCE, who makes a choice of whether this OER applies to a particular thing. So let's go now to this university regulations regarding copyright. So it says the university has a legal obligation to ensure all staff are copyright compliant. And what is copying? It means reproducing or recording work in a material form and includes storing in any medium by any means. For example, CD-ROM is out now, I think, I don't know. Maybe USBs should be put on there. Or any other kind of material. It doesn't include communicating the material, making it available online electronically or intranet or through Moodle. So that kind of like doesn't help our case in terms of OER. It's kind of like contradictory to what OER is about. When copying from a copyright work, is important to that is an accurate copy of the original. It should not be adapted or reformatted. This will infringe the rights of the author or the rights of the publisher or unless you ask for permission, right? So if you ask for permission and you have that right, or if there's a format given, open license given that you are allowed, then I think this one will go. Copyright material can be used freely to set and answer questions for examination purposes and can be communicated to candidates. Then what is the procedure? The staff should provide a full bibliography of all the collections that are used and for their research or their book or whatever they're writing. And it should include the title of the book, the author, the publisher, the country, the year in which it was published, the ISBN where possible, the pages copied, the number of pages in the work. There's quite a lot of information that you need to do just for your bibliography. Excuse me. Then the notice should be put there with a C in a circle saying what year it is and who is the author of that particular work. And then when the copyright owner has indicated the material is to be freely copied, then it uses one of these particular systems: CC, Creative Commons; CL, copied under license; OA, open access; or PD, public domain. Now let's go to see if all of these, okay, I'm coming to it. Yes. So when we come to the OER policy, can you see the OER? Here we are. So open license, sorry, go back to the, excuse me, there's a lot of talking involved here. OER educational resources are those for learning and resource in any material or medium used to support education, teaching, research, which resides in the public domain or have been released under an open license, and permits no cost, access, reuse, revision, remixing, retention, and redistribution by others. Open license means open to reuse, revise, remix, redistribute a work without permission of the original copyright holder. Creative Commons licensing framework has several different types of, there's 6 actually. Now we come to Creative Commons. Creative Commons is non-profit that's devoted to the range of creative works available for others to build on legally and share. And there's 6 types of licenses, and I'll come to this. And then copyright is the legal right of the creator of a work. So a creator can be an artist or publisher or writer, dramatist, those words that you use that you associate with the different types of works that they produce. This can include ownership, and it can the owner then has the right, the moral rights to assert that right over other people, and then allows that writer or creator to use or have the exclusive right to determine how to use it in all manner, including remix, redistribution, and so forth. And then the owner can decide how to sell it if they want to give other people the right to use it. Public domain are works that are distributed in rights that are relinquished to the general public. So for example, you had recently some scientists in India said, we're going to do some work on outer space, and the work that we do will not be owned by the Indian government, it will be for the good of mankind. So it'll be free for the whole world to use. So that generally is the largest area, most open source where people can access. And now we get to the 6 types of Creative Commons licenses. And the first one is attribution. So the license allows others to distribute, remix, tweak, and build on your work, even commercially, as long as they credit you with the original creation. And this is the most accommodating of the licenses. The next one is attribution, share alike, and this is traditionally used by the CFL in a lot of their works. License allows to remix, tweak, and build upon your work, even for commercial purposes, as long as they give you attribution and license in their creation. And the license is often compared to open license software. Then the next one is attribution, non-commercial. So you can't sell it, but you can allow others to remix, tweak, and build on the work. Sorry, I'm just going to skip out of this one, and I'm going to go to another one. Sorry about that. This one here is a bit more detailed explanation. Can you see there's 6 types of license types listed from the least permissive, and the first one is license allows users, that's the attribution, to distribute, remix, and adapt. Then the next one is the distribution, remix, adapt, and build upon the material. Then the credit is given to the creator. Adaptations must be shared on the same terms. The next one is license hours to distribute, remix, adapt, and build upon the material, but it's also non-commercial and allows attribution. The next one is the license allows users to redistribute, remix, adapt, build upon the material in any medium or format for non-commercial purposes only, and adapt so long as the attribution is given to the creator. If you remix, adapt, or build upon the material, you must license the modified material under identical terms. So what it's just trying to say is, if you use this form of license, then you can only do these many things within the license, and you can't do more than what the license permits. So these types of 6 licenses, here's another one, allows users to copy, distribute the material in any form or medium, and could even be commercial. So you could take somebody's work, which is non-commercial, and even sell it and make something out of it for your commercial purposes. And then there's another one. The license allows users to copy, distribute the material in any medium or format in an adapted form for non-commercial purposes only, and for so long as the attribution is given to the creator. So here we have, and then the most open one is 0, which is public domain. So in other words, anyone can go in and use it. So these are the 6 kinds of licenses that you can put on your documents. So on the very first page, or the copyright page, you have one of these 6 licenses that you could put on your document instead of the traditional C in the circle, right? So traditionally you have C in the circle followed by the year and the name of the person. In this methodology, we don't have the C in the circle, but we have one of the 6 licenses, and we then say which type of license suits us. I'm just going to get out of this now. I can't seem to get back onto this. What is going on? Sorry, I've lost my window. Here we are. Well,
Sorry, just give me a minute while I find my space. I'm trying to get back to
Hi everyone, just give us a minute to get Marie back online. I think she was finishing off, but she just had a bit of a technical problem with her laptop. And but please do post your questions in the chat, and I'll get Marie to respond to your questions. Basically, for us at CFL, and one of the things that Marie pointed out is that we try to promote the adoption and creation of OERs using the Creative Commons BYSA license, and that's because we'd like to keep that resource openly licensed, because BYSA means that you have to attribute, and you also have to reshare whatever work that you do. So adaptation, you have to reshare with the same license. So you can't get away from that. That's one of the requirements for Creative Commons attribution share alike, is that you have to share it with the same license. And so that's one of the reasons that we go along with that license, because if it's CC BY, basically that's the most open license. You can use it for non-commercial purpose. You can make adaptations, and then you can release whatever adaptations you have with any license that you choose. Right. So that's within the Creative Commons framework. So I can see some questions. We'll just wait for Marie to come back on.
last picture. I don't know if can you see this one? It says OER, not OER. Okay, sorry, I'll try it again.
can you see this last picture, which says OER, not OER? Okay, so this is the basically, whoops, it came out. Sorry, try again. I'm really just not familiar with this today. Right, here we go. So this just tells you what the sequence is in terms of the which is the most OER, and then the last one at the bottom, not OER. So just going by this university OER policy, we now have this framework on which you can choose a particular license and use. So the main gist is that these licenses have already been used by CFL in all its publications, and they're constantly being used in OER resources that are produced by the faculty in teaching and learning. So the OER policy applies to learning and teaching materials, and then you could say the other copyright applies perhaps to the research and learn and teaching materials. So I've seen in some cases that the license, Creative Commons license, has been used in other types of publications, scholarly publications, and so I think it's now gaining momentum, and people are starting to figure out that you don't only have to rely on the C in the circle. You can always use one of these open creative licenses. So the question I pose for the researchers, and particularly for students, is, do you want someone to come back and ask you after you've published your work for permission all the time? More than 10%, because remember, they can only copy 10% if they have to use or copy for their particular work. So if you don't want them to come and bug you all the time, then I think it's better for you to use one of these open license systems, so that the boundaries of that system, the license, are spelt out in that license, and they don't have to come and bug you all the time. But if you do want them to come and bug you for more than 10% all the time, then fine, go ahead, use the C in the circle, which is a traditional copyright, which means you retain the rights to copyright, and if anything more than 10%, they have to come and ask your permission all the time. So I think the one of the license systems allows you to go and use that license without having to always contact the author or publisher of that particular material. So keeping that in mind, the question for us is, okay, what happens to the thesis that you produce? Well, I think about 99% of the thesis, or maybe 100% of the thesis so far, have been done with a C in the copyright, because there's a university policy that says that when you write your thesis, you have to use that particular format. But last November, the university library has adopted a policy where they will give you an option to the particular writer to choose between using an open license system and the C in the circle, the traditional copyright. So now the university is starting to open up and to allow the researcher to use their discretion on what kind of licensing system they want to use in their thesis. So when you get to present your thesis at the library, they will then ask you this question of which system suits you. So the question for you is, decide, make up your mind, and choose which system you want to showcase, because that will indicate to the user who uses your work whether they should contact you to get further permissions, or they don't have to contact you at all, and then they can still use your work to do one of these things, remix, reuse, and so forth, freely or on certain levels of permission. So I leave that up to you, and I think I will stop there because I think I've gone on way too long. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Marie. That was definitely quite an extensive presentation on copyright and open licenses, but nonetheless, it's something that's really important as professional staff, as academics, students, that you understand any work that you create, what types of licenses that you can attach to your work. And whether we're talking about open educational resources or we're talking about copyright, these are things that that are important when you create your own work, and it's important for us to have an understanding of these things. There are two questions that I have picked out from the chat, and this is for Marie. Marie, the first question from Alanieta Lisumopatiaki. If WIPO is not recognizing computer-generated content as copyright, who does it belong to then?
Oh, what it's saying is that you have generated something, so you own a something, but the thing you generated is not copyrightable in the sense that you did not make it up from your own mind. It needs human mind to claim copyright. So since this was not created by human mind but by a computer, then you can only just give an attribution saying this is generated by AI or chat GPT or something else, that whatever method you use to generate that work. So you have to say that you can't claim it as your own. You know what I mean? You can only say that this was generated by a computer, chat GPT or AI or whatever method you use to generate it.
Thank you, Marie. I hope that answers your question, Alanieta. And I will now move on to Ram Singh Jr.'s question. His question is, who then absorbs the responsibility, consequence of the content if the content is racist / insensitive / oppressive / non-factual? Does the person or entity sharing the information bear the burden of consequences?
Well, I think that's not quite a copyright question, but I think the answer is yes. The person who writes it will have to bear the responsibility unless you're disclaiming that it is not yours. So, for example, in the intellectual property policy says that the author generates it doesn't necessarily mean the university takes responsibility. The author claims that right, or the author writes it, so the author might be the one who absorbs the responsibility. So if you want to sue somebody, maybe you have to sue the author rather than the university, or something like that.
Probably a follow-up to that, Marie. Considering that the university does take ownership in terms of copyright of any work released by its staff, who then bears the responsibility?
Yes, that's a good one, because in the university IP policy it does say the stuff created belongs to the university because the university paid that staff to do it. So I think the staff has to take that ownership, and then the university will probably be blamed if such a thing does happen. The staff writes something that falls under one of these categories that's just been mentioned. So I think it behoves the staff to write responsibly.
Thank you, Marie. Is there any questions? Please feel free to type them out in the chat. We still have a lot of time, but we definitely probably won't go till 12. So if you do have questions, you can post it now and we can answer them. Okay, so we have another question on chat from Alanieta, and it's, so what advice would you give to someone who may want to later on turn their thesis into a book? How would that work licensing wise?
Oh, well, in the first place, when you've written the thesis, on the very front page, you would have written what kind of copyright that you want this work to have. So if you've chosen C in the circle, then you already have made up one a kind of determination that people will have to come and ask you for permission if they want to copy more than 10%. So if you choose that, then you want to later turn it into a book, that's your right to do so. You can go and publish it whichever way you want to. Parts of it, a whole book or chapter verses or whatever you want to do. And then at that point, you might say, oh, well, I want to change this copyright from the copyright in the circle, C in the circle, to an open license system. That is then for you to then decide. So then you turn it into a book, but I think you have to say somewhere, I am now changing my licensing system from C in the circle to an open license system. I think it has to be transparent, excuse me, so that the users know you did have one system earlier and now you're changing into another open licensing system.
Right. Thank you, Marie. There's also another question here. I'll read it to you. Sorry, before that, in terms of copyright, like copyright just means you are creator and owner of that particular work, and so you have that ability to relicense.
Yes.
Yeah, so I thought that would be the most simplest way of thinking about copyright. And if you want to move towards OER, so if you have a copyright work and you want to release that in as an OER, it's your right, and you can do that easily by adopting one of the Creative Commons license. Okay, we have a question here. I'm not sure whether we can answer this one, but I'll just read out Jione's question, and it says, when it comes to renewal of contract and staff promotion, is OER may have some complications in this? In simple terms, is OER publication count towards renewal and promotion?
In the OER policy, yes, you can count it towards the staff teaching and staff research methodology. I have asked this morning the person at research office who looks after this, and they say there is no way when you submitting the material to the ERR to indicate whether it is no way for the research office to know whether it is OER or any other kind of publication. So I think it's up to the author who's submitting that material to indicate in the comment section that it is OER material that you're submitting for quality of research and quality of teaching identification. And yes, that OER does go into the quality of teaching and quality of research towards your ranking.
Okay, thank you very much, Marie. Any more questions? Thank you very much, everyone, for your questions and also for staying tuned into this webinar. We just have one more bit left, and I will just take probably 5 to 10 minutes on showing you our Open Pacifica platform, some of the open courses that we offer, and some of the activities that we have planned for the year. And so if you do have any questions for Marie or Gwen, you can post them up now. Oh, sorry, Ram has a question. Okay, so Ram Singh has a question. If I give an LLM, so that's an AI model, my AI thesis, and then edit, can I copyright the entire publication?
Oh, I think the answer will be no, because you've fed your LLM into an AI and it generated something else, and then you edited it. Your editing, maybe yes, because that is human intervention, human part. But the fact that you generated something from a computer, no. And then you copyright the entire publication. I think you have to put a disclaimer on it to say part of it was generated by AI and part of it is my own. So you have to indicate which parts are generated by AI and which parts are your own.
Yeah, that's also a very interesting area in terms of AI generated content, and whether you're using some AI generated content in your work, and I think it's probably just best practice that if you're going to use any AI tool to generate content, that you declare that. I don't think that the world has been prepared, in terms of legal frameworks on how to deal with this situation. I don't even know whether Fiji Copyright Act can deal with this, but maybe Marie can comment on that.
The Fiji Copyright Act, you won't believe it, was done in 1999. Actually does recognize computer generated work as attributing it to the author of the person who created that. But the author who created it is the AI, right? So how do you attribute that to that particular AI? So I think you'd have to say a disclaimer that it was generated by AI. There's actually cases around the world, and in the USA, they already had cases way back, 2008 or something like that, where the courts have already said they don't allow to claim copyright over this kind of works. And that is the basis on which WIPO then says that we will not allow that either, because there's already court cases around the world that have said it has to be generated by human mind. If it's not generated by human mind, then you can't say it's your own.
Thank you, Marie, and definitely a very interesting topic in terms of AI and copyright. If there are no other questions, we'll move on to what I will present now. And then afterwards, we can also have another discussion. Can also continue to post your questions on the chat. So I will just share my screen. Okay, so everyone can see my screen?
Yeah, Open Pacifica.
Okay, so Open Pacifica is our learning platform for open courses. So basically, MOOCs that we used to offer previously, as well as any free course that we want to offer to the general public, we have this site. And this site is basically configured so that the public can actually come and sign up. So you can create a new account if you don't have one, and then you can also access the courses. So there are quite a lot of courses that we have developed over time. We have these specific open courses that was developed through the Pacific Partnership for ODFL. Right, so this site is free to the public. If you're a university staff or student, you just use this option with login with USB account, and just use your USB credentials, and you'll be just logged in directly. Right, so we have a couple of courses that are running. One is we have this free regulation of aviation starts today, so it's going, and we also have this open educational resource basic course. And so if you want to try out activities and assessment on OERs, there's this course here. It's free. You can just I will post the link on the chat, and you can access this when you're free. There's no cost to this. It's open. It's self-paced, so you can take your time. This was released last year as part of our Open Education Week, and I've left it open for anyone who may want to continue to attempt this course. And it's a Moodle platform, so if you're familiar with Moodle, you'll be able to navigate easily, but it is also designed so that you can just go through. And there's resources, there's ebooks, there's discussion forums, we have a survey, and so you can actually go and brush up on the things that Marie was mentioning about open licensing, right? Basics of copyright. So we have that all covered. There's some quizzes that you can also use to test your knowledge. So this is a very interactive course. It's not just content and there are activities. And the last bit that you have to submit, and you get your certificate and a badge, is you have this image resource challenge, where you have to actually create a document which is going to be an OER. So you need to look for an OER, use it in a lesson, and then submit it as your work. And so I'll just show you. So this is what one person had submitted last year, right? So there's an OER, it's a document that he has submitted. He's attributed where he got this image from, what is the license, and then he's licensing his work according to this lesson, so that this becomes an OER. So if you want to contribute to Open Education Week, I strongly recommend you to try this course out and create your first OER if you haven't done this before. And you will be contributing to this open education movement of creating resources that will be available to the world. So this is, and so that's our open education resource site. There is an more advanced course to this, and that's going to be released later on. So make sure you bookmark this site. If you're a staff or student, you'll get notifications on your tuku email on when courses are available. We also will be posting that on the university social media site. Right, so that's all that I have to share. Let me just stop. Any questions so far? Thank you, Ala, for sharing the link. And so there will be other courses coming up in the year. We have courses on the SDG 14. We have courses on sharks, rays that are planned for later in the year. And so those will be some really interesting ones that are coming up. And also in terms in the education field, we have the ODFL courses. And from CFL side, in terms of where some of the work that we're trying to do is try and train more teachers on using OERs, creating OERs, and then we're also looking at setting up a repository for open access. And this will help people find resources that are contextualized to the Pacific region. So these are all the exciting things that are coming at the end of this year or early next year. And so I'll now put it out to anyone who has any questions, even if you want to have questions on AI and copyright. Now's the best to make use of Marie and her expertise in IP and copyright.
I do want to challenge you on one thing,
Yes.
Mojito. In your OER policy, it already mandates you to have a repository on OER. And I'm pretty sure that this repository is the one Gwen has been talking about in the university library. So that sort of absolves you of that need to have a repository separately from what Gwen has said. But you did say that that's coming up in your plan of action. So I don't know whether you don't mean to duplicate what Gwen has already done.
No, actually, this repository was already set up. It was running. This was during Professor Somnadu's time, and Deepak Bartu was in my position previously. And so this repository was set up with all the OERs, and it's sort of it's a curated collection. Yeah? So I've been trying to work with IT services to get this repository back up again. And at the same time, we're also looking to work with other stakeholders on trying to curate specific resources for particular fields, secondary education, primary education. And so this is the space that we're looking to work in. What Gwen presented, I think, also it's more like internal repository. What we are going to have is something that's more open access, and so you won't need any login credentials to access the resources on this site. And we'll try and curate resources that are available globally, so that you don't have to go to one site or another site to search, so that we can search within one site. So that's where we're at. I think there's some comments coming in. Let me set that. Yes, Niseta, I believe there was an initial repository that one had stopped, and then after that the debug started another one with. So this was a totally new platform. Right? So there was also an OER committee, I believe. Yeah, one of the things that we wanted to do was try and collaborate more with Library, with Marie from the research office on how we can start working together to have a more cohesive front in terms of OERs. And so this is not something that's going to end with this webinar. We'll be working together to make sure that the services we offer in terms of OER is not, disjointed. So we also want to make sure that our services also are also meeting the demands of our staff and students, as well as as the public, the region that we serve. So, yeah, thank you, Niseta, for that comment. And also for Ala, there's a question for Marie. So for participation in virtual sessions, since we have released our personal images and thoughts and these are recorded, how do we protect ourselves in this regard for inappropriate use later on? Maybe a non-issue. I just wonder if there is anything.
I think what you mean is at the beginning of the session, you might have said something about you allowing your access, so you are giving permission already to be recorded. Otherwise, you wouldn't have taken part in that particular recording. So by giving your image and your thoughts that are allowed to be recorded, then you are saying to the organizer, here, I'm participating and I'm willingly participating. But if you don't, then I think you need to say to the organizer, I reserve my right not to use my image unless, and then you spelled out so many particular conditions that the organizer has to accept. And if the organizer doesn't accept that, then you're not even part of the conversation, so you're out. And if the organizer accepts those conditions, and that will be the conditions on which you are allowed your thoughts and your images to be used much later on for particular recording. So for example, in this particular recording, it could jolly well be going live, and it could jolly well be recorded and replayed put on the website, even on the CFL website or OER website. And so you have given implicitly your permission by joining in and by participating. You've given permission to allow that to happen, to use your thoughts and your images in that particular way. So if you decide not to, then you might as well just cancel out and not participate, I think.
All right, thank you very much, Marie. Oh, she had. There's a question from Lisetta. What marketing information can we put on the USP Facebook page, if any? Yeah, that's that it.
I'm not sure who that question is targeting. It seems to be targeting me, but I'll try and attempt it. If you're putting something up on any page, never mind it's a USB Facebook page or somewhere, then you're implicitly giving your permission to allow it to be used in that way. And if you're not saying, if you're not allowing it to be put up on the page, then you wouldn't have put it up in the first place. So I think by if you're saying, let's see, if it's copyrightable, then you may not put it up. If it's something, for example, USP has a trademark over paper and cloth. So anything that has paper or cloth content, the USP logo can be used on it. So if you have, for example, and this is where part of the worry that I've had, and I've flagged it to the research director as well as to risk and manage places, that the USP logo is only protected insofar as paper and cloth. So the USP logo I found has been on a boat, has been on umbrellas, has been on bags, has been on electronic items and places where it has no protection and not trademarked at all. So that might be considered a misuse of the university logo, and it's put in places where it is not protected. So any person can come along and say, hello, you're using this trademark here, but you haven't paid the proper fees and you haven't registered it the proper way to be used in that way. So I think the university has to take some steps to protect itself, to continue to register its marks on those items which it sees as important. For example, tents, umbrellas, those quite important items, bags, and even university boats. So those are things that just apart from the Facebook page.
All right, thank you, Marie. I'll just wait for any more questions. I'll also now put it forward to our panelists, Dr. Chand, Gwen, if there's anything you'd like to share or before we wrap up this session.
Sorry, Mojito, did you want me to say something? I'm just a bit occupied, so I didn't follow anything.
Yeah, if you'd like to say anything, I'm just giving this time open to any panelist that wants to have any final remarks. And yeah, it's while waiting for any questions on the chat.
Thank you, Mojito. I think this is a very good, healthy discussion that we have had in the last half an hour or more on the importance of OER. And I guess we need to really market it a bit more so that even students are able to gain more awareness. I mean, we know, academics know about the use of OER and how it can be utilized. And through CFL, we try to encourage the use of them in the various courses, especially with the new course revision forms, as well as new courses, any of those forms that come to our office, we actually encourage. But I think there is a need to also somehow share more information with students, and possibly the avenues that we have through SLS, FOIC, and maybe through the student association as well. We should try as much as possible so that they don't see it as, oh, it's something out there that can be used. There may be, I think, ways in which we could encourage them how to use or look at options, or what are other reading material available, or how they can access like a plan B or C when they are looking for resources in the library, or when they are doing any research for that matter. I don't see many students participating in such workshops. So possibly there may be opportunities, or there may be ways in which, not just this week in March, which is usually the week we have that every year, but other times we can actually think of a way that these types of things could be organized or information sharing could be done. So that's from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chand. Definitely, and the intention between this webinar on inviting library and also Marie, particularly library, because they are a pretty important contact point for students. And so this will start probably, a working relationship between the library to see how we can reach students more in terms of open educational resources. We'll try to work with them and also with SLS. So I'm glad that we also have our SLS colleagues, because it's quite difficult for well, my position at home, because I'm not a really direct contact with students, and so my job will then have to work with SLS, library, all these student first point of contact services that we can actually build on so that we can have more students using OER. I also want in the future really to move not from finding and using OERs, but for our university staff to be able to create some really quality OERs, because we had this some years back, and there were some publications of OERs, so that's all well and good, but we also need to get that moving as well. So I want to
I finally managed to get my face up.
thank you, Marie.
Was it?
So on that note, thank you very much, Marie and Gwen, Dr. Chan, for this being speakers in this webinar. I also want to thank the participants that have joined and have actually stayed, engaged throughout this webinar. There will be an evaluation form straight after I end this meeting, and it will pop up on your screen. Please don't ignore it, but try and objectively give some feedback, and also suggest other topics that we can talk about throughout the year on open education, and even suggest workshops. So those are things that I can help organize with staff and students. I'm also happy to collaborate with anyone in the outside of USP. So if you have any project or anything that you want help or work with us at the Center for Flexible Learning, we're definitely open to this. And so I thank you, everyone. Okay, there's a question on the polling results, and I'll share that to everyone. Right, so you should be seeing that right about now. If you didn't know much about copyright and open education, open licensing, I hope this session was very useful for you, and that we can continue to work in this space. And so please keep a lookout for the next webinar. We may sit down again to discuss open education in the next month or in 2 months' time, and you'll be informed accordingly. Yes, thank you to all the messages that are coming through from the chat. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
How did you get your picture up? What did you do?
No idea. Are we still on?
Mute and
Yeah, I'm going to end the webinar. Thank you, everyone. See you later.